Kevin, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 18th of 2016. So in a week, it'll be 5 years. I've heard other people say they can get kind of squirrely around the sobriety date. I don't really know why that is, but for me, I can tell you that this time of year has a special value to me in a good and bad way, because it's the fall and the leaves are changing, and so I kind of tie that in with my last month or two of drinking and stuff like that, and it's as I'll tell you, it wasn't very fun by any means. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. I have a sponsor, and I sponsor other guys in the program. So the big question for me, having a little time sober now, is how much time do I spend explaining my sobriety versus how much time do I spend explaining how it was when I was drinking. So I'm going to try to, because now I can spend a good amount of time telling you about sobriety and my experiences through sobriety and everything, and the good and the bad. But so childhood, I was born and raised up in New York, Poughkeepsie to be specific, which is about an hour and 15 minutes northwest of the city. I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic parochial school through fourth grade, like when I moved down here. I had a great childhood. I mean, I've heard many stories, and I don't really think that my parents made me be an alcoholic, or my upbringing made me be an alcoholic or whatever. I think that there are some traits that I may have learned from early on that have had kind of brought into my alcoholism and addiction. And I'll try to keep it to alcohol since this is AA, but drugs are a little part of my story too. Anyways, living up in New York, it was good. I was raised in, I would say, a pretty strict family. I would say I was sheltered. When I was riding my bike around the neighborhood, I could only go a certain distance, and if I went too far, somehow my mom would know, and I'd get in trouble for that. And all the other kids were able to kind of go where they wanted to go, and their parents trusted them and stuff, and that kind of just made me feel a little bit different. And there's multiple things early on that made me feel different from everyone else. Like I said, I was raised Catholic, and so I had, for some reason, I don't really know, but they held me back a grade, and I had 2 years of pre-K, so preschool or whatever, which kind of set off the series of events of always being a year older than everyone. So, like, in high school, people were getting their license when they were a junior or whatever, and I had my license when I was a sophomore. And so it was always this thing that I felt like I need to explain myself, because I was always a year older. I did stuff up in New York. I've always been outdoorsy, and my parents took me on the hikes and, down to the Hudson River and all that kind of stuff. And, I wasn't really a bad kid from the start. I can remember I was pretty immature. I'd call people out when they farted in class, or, just, what young boys do, I guess, but probably a little bit over the top. So I moved down here in 1996. So I was 10 years old, and I was in fourth grade, and it was a culture shock for me because coming from the north to the south, people were saying y'all, and it wasn't like that big of a deal for me. But again, it made me. I always kind of had a little trouble fitting in. I was athletic and I was on the smarter side. I was in like the AP and honors classes and stuff in high school, but again, I just had trouble fitting in. One thing that kind of happened earlier on as well was I went to a certain middle school, and then when everyone switched from middle school to high school, they basically, the majority of people went to a certain high school, and then other people went to another high school. And I was one of those few other people that went to the other high school. So, and it was just by like where you lived. So the way it was is like Cary and Apex are really close to each other. So the line for Cary and Apex actually went down my driveway. So I went to a Cary middle school, but then I ended up going to Apex High School. So, the meaning of that is I had two different sets of friends. So I really didn't have a lot of friends at my high school because when I had free time, I was hanging out with the other people from the other high school. So that made like class and stuff kind of awkward because I wasn't building those relationships and stuff like everyone else was. I was pretty nerdy. I was into computer games and video games, PlayStation, stuff like that. And by the way, I have a sister. She's 2 years younger than me. Anyways, so moving forward, I do decent in middle school. I really don't get in a lot of trouble early on. I mean, maybe a couple of detentions or something. Nothing major. I remember when I did cause trouble or get in trouble, I was kind of like the person that egged the other person on. Like I was kind of the manipulator. So I was like, I would get the other person to commit the crime or the whatever it was. And one memory I have was like in 8th grade. Me and a buddy that I'm actually still friends with today, we're just playing, and we both had a fascination with fire. So we, had some matches or a lighter or something, and we were over near the high school playing with the lighter, and there was this like really dry thing of like, it was kind of like a swampy area, so like I don't know what the grassy stuff is, but it was just dry, and there was a big dry tree behind it, and I was like, hey Matt, why don't you go ahead and light that on fire? That would be cool. And I didn't think it through clearly, and so it ignited really quickly, and the tree caught on fire too, and we're like, uh-oh. So we run, and they live close, his parents live close by, within like a half mile, and I think I was having dinner there too, and his mom was cooking some hamburgers or hot dogs out on the grill, and it was like hazy, a little smoky around the house. And, she's like, and then the fire trucks went by, and she's like, oh, I wonder what that's about. And we're like, I don't know. And so, I was lying from the beginning, and we were scared about it. We didn't really know like what happened. All we knew was we caught some stuff on fire, and the fire trucks came, and there was smoke about a half mile away. So we don't know whether we burned down a building or like the school or something. But anyways, I think so. I think we had like a sleepover or something like that, and we woke up in the morning, and we went to walk his dog, and we of course returned to the scene of the crime just to kind of see what happened, and the fire inspector was there, inspecting what had happened, And, there's a bunch of trees that were, you'd see the burn and stuff. Nothing like major really happened, and guys like, do y'all know what happened back here or anything? And we're just like, nope. And we just kept on walking. I tell that story because that's the kind of mischief that I got into. It wasn't like super bad. I mean, I was lucky because it could have been bad. I could have burned, I could have hurt someone. Anyways, fast forward. I said high school was kind of weird for me. Again, I was a year older than everyone, so I had my car, my license. I could drive before everyone. And basically, like when you were a junior, you could, if you had your license in a car, you could drive and park in the junior parking lot. And I could do that when I was a sophomore, but I wasn't allowed to. So on the weekends, I would drive around, stuff like that. And people would see me and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, is that guy driving legally or illegally or what?" Like I said, I did good in high school. And like I was saying before, I was sheltered still up to this time, and through high school, like I hadn't taken a drink yet. I had sips of my dad's beer and stuff like that, just like one or two, and I was like, man, that's gross. Like, normal kid pretty much. Senior year was when my parents kind of like let off the shelteredness or whatever, and but before that, all the high school people were having the keg parties and coming into class messed up, and I knew what was going on, but I wasn't involved in it. So me and my friend Matt, we would get some beer from a buddy of his that he worked with at a restaurant. And he'd buy us some beer. I just remember being down in his basement drinking and stuff. And a lot of people say that profound effect of the alcohol when they took their first drink and stuff. And I didn't have that effect. I mean, I felt a little different, but like I didn't go crazy right off the bat. But like it says in the book, it's a progressive disease. So I mean, it progressed and it got a lot worse. So my first experience of like being drunk, my parents took me on a high school graduation trip over to the UK, and the drinking age is 18. So, I was able to have a beer or two with my parents, and my mom is an alcoholic. It's a weird situation because she was like a closet alcoholic. She would literally drink in the closet and hide it from us, and we would know she was drunk or something, and then she would just lie to our faces consistently. And I think she went to AA for like 6 or 7 years when it got really bad, and then I think now she might have a drink with my dad, or just I don't know. Like I just kind of stay to myself with that whole deal. If I do kind of sense that she is under the influence, it does bother me because of the kind of that trauma in my childhood about being lied to. Anyways, so over in the UK, the limit was kind of like 1 or 2 beers, and my parents were cool with that. And I remember one night, at this time I was drinking the fancy beer, I was drinking the Stella or whatever, and I went up to the bar to get the 3rd beer, and my mom's like, probably should not do that or whatever, and I did it, and that was the first time I guess I was drunk and I felt the effects of the alcohol. And I remember going back up to the hotel and laying on the bed and the room spinning and stuff, but I still didn't really have that euphoric feeling like everyone says. Anyways, I go to college. I room with my friend Matt. Obviously was my best friend, still is actually. Freshman year of college, so I went to NC State, and my dad's a retired mechanical engineer, so I love cars, not to be like a mechanic, but just I love fast cars and just the speed, adrenaline, all that kind of stuff. And so anyways, I wanted to take after him and, you know, not work at Lenovo or do anything with computers. I wanted to, you know, design like Lamborghini brakes or something, just something cool like that. So I did mechanical engineering for the first year, and Matt basically, you know, kind of went out of control his first semester, and you know, I remember him. We had like a physics test the next day, and you know, he was running around campus, and I think they were drinking like Goldschlager or something like that, and you know, setting fireworks off, and they did this thing where there's I think there's several fountains on campus, but one of them, I think it was by like Tally or the student union area, but they put like a whole thing of detergent in it, and so it just, I mean, bubbled everywhere. And it was just a big scene. That was, I think, the night before an exam or something. But so I was still kind of Mr. Goody Goody. Of course, I got involved with a girl. Turned out to be like my first love or whatever. She was older than me. I was 19. She was 20, almost 21. She was a junior and I was a freshman. And we met in chemistry. You know, not to go into too much detail, it's like my problem is I didn't know how to accept life on life's terms. I didn't know how to live life. And so I think I had like codependency issues, just all this stuff. And that makes total sense now that I'm an alcoholic and I have all the, you know, I can manage these things somewhat, or God can help me do it. But yeah, we dated for like 6 months, 7 months, and then things, I don't really know what happened. Oh yeah, so I suffer from like depression and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, and OCD, and not like the stuff where you have to like touch the doorknob 20 times, just like weird thoughts and stuff like that. And you know, I shared some of those things with her, and she literally went running for the hills, and so I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like I thought we loved each other. I thought we were supposed to like, you know, be together and all this stuff. So that was like my first experience with a breakup like that, and of course, you know, the wheels didn't come off right away, but the second semester is when things started. You know, I started doing some other substances, and I started, you know, doing the kind of, it was my first semester of sophomore year. I started doing some of the like escaping things. You know, like I said, I was kind of nerdy. I was playing like World of Warcraft and stuff, and I would, you know, get immersed in the game and just like, you know, screw school. And I was still in mechanical engineering, and you know, I flunked out. So, but the story behind that is I just wanted to escape life. That crushed me, and I didn't know how to cope with it or anything. So, playing video games and, you know, doing other stuff would just help me escape. You know, at this point I was introduced to like, you know, psychiatrists and therapists and that kind of stuff. So I've been involved in that for years, trying to fix me, you know, my issue and stuff. So I think sophomore year I got like a 0.7 GPA, just horrible. And my parents were paying for school, and when they found out, they immediately yanked me out of school. And you know, I only cared about myself and getting, you know, messed up and stuff. So I remember having like not going to many classes. I had a physics exam, and I was under the influence when I went to the physics exam. And the only thing I wanted to do was go raid with my guild and play World of Warcraft. And so I finished the test, the first one done, and I had just drawn pictures on it, and I didn't care. And, you know, that's just my selfishness and self-centeredness, I didn't really care about the consequences. Um, moving forward, so like in my life there, and I'll tell you briefly about it. What happens is I build myself up and I do well and manage my life or whatever, and then comes the part where something happens, and I don't know what it is. It could be a breakup, just overwhelming, and then I just self-destruct and I burn it to the ground. And little did I know I was an alcoholic, and I didn't know looking back after doing like the 4th step and noticing that pattern of doing well while drinking and doing drugs and stuff, because it's progressive. I was functioning for quite some time till I was probably 25. I tried quitting one thing, and then my drinking escalated. The fact of the matter is, like, I couldn't accept myself, and I couldn't live life on life's terms. So I wanted to escape. So the first time I burnt my life to the ground was after I got yanked out of college. I went to live back with my parents. They said no doing certain things, and I continued to do those things. And they kicked me out. I lived at various places. Just I was like waiting tables and then working at Panera at the same time. I would always get into these kind of coincidences where, like at Panera, a drug dealer of mine turned out to be my manager, and just like, and there's several kind of coincidences like that happened throughout my life where I couldn't get away from it, and I was doing brash things, like I would be waiting tables over at the restaurant, and Panera was right there. I'd run over to the Panera and pick up what I needed, and just run back, and then go tend to my tables or whatever, just stupid stuff, and it gets a lot worse, but. So that's a phase of my life, and then kind of still going downhill. I had a car at the time, and I couldn't afford the payments, so I actually made a decent decision, and I turned it back into the dealership. So I didn't get it repoed or anything like that, and so that was my first experience not having a car. I still had a license or whatever, but not having a car, and I just rented a room from a random father and son off of North Harrison. I worked at a hotel down the street. It was a 2 or 3 mile bike ride. My dad gave me a bike, and I would just for the next few years I would just ride to and from work, and I would make sure to stop at the Harris Teeter on the way home to get what I needed. Every time, and so I had a pretty good experience. I was valeting cars and stuff, so I was living the dream, driving people's Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff, and having this pipe dream that I'm gonna own one of these one day and stuff, and so I was just living in this delusion, and it's great to be ambitious, but you also have to be realistic, which I had to find out. So I valeted cars for 6 or 7 years, and then I love mountain biking, in the woods and stuff. I've been doing that since I was 16, and so I worked at a bike shop for my first job, and I'm saying that to explain that I got bored. There's always a problem with something, so I was like, man, this job was paying my bills valeting, but I didn't like it anymore, so I was bored of it, so I'm okay, I'm gonna go work at the bike shop because the grass is always greener on the other side. So I worked at the bike shop, making I think less money and stuff. And one day I just kind of had a moment where I'm like, man, I'm not going anywhere. I think I can do better in my life and stuff. And so I had left NC State with a really bad GPA. And so I was under the impression that I wouldn't be able to get back into school, but something came into me, and I applied while I was at work to get back in, and then I found out that I got back in, So I'm like, okay, cool, this is awesome. And for a long time, I was always living to please my parents, meet their expectations, just for most of my life. And so, like when I wasn't in school, kind of taking after my dad's path of, doing in high school, going to college, getting the degree, getting a good job, getting the wife, getting the house, that American dream or whatever. If I was on that track, I felt like my parents and just society treated me differently. Like I was more accepted into society. And when I was on an alternate path, I felt more of like an outcast. And for a while, I was on, the outside, just drinking and doing drugs and stuff to escape. But I got back into school. My parents were happy. They took me on vacation and it was just totally different. And I was still drinking and doing other stuff. And again, it wasn't really that bad. I wasn't having like any consequences. I remember, like I said, I had been in therapy, seeing a therapist for a while, and I remember like walking down from my apartment to class and calling my therapist and saying, hey, I'm drinking like a bottle of wine or like a 6-pack every night, and I was kind of like concerned about that, and he's like, well, you're doing well in school and everything's going okay, so just that's not a problem. I'm like, okay, cool. So I've got approval from my therapist that the drinking and other stuff is okay. So I continued doing that, and I remember like the powerlessness that I had over the alcohol and the drugs started becoming apparent. Like I was always into like lifting at the gym and exercising and stuff, and I was like obsessed about like the protein synthesis or whatever. Like so you would work out and you'd have to consume enough protein, and if you drank, it would cut your gains by like 50%. So I was like, okay, well, so I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to drink, and on days that I work out. And that didn't happen. So I would work out. I'd go to school and do whatever I needed to do, make dinner, and then there would be this downtime at night when I would just like watch TV and stuff, and then I would just find myself with the drink in my hand. So that started to happen, and the disease started to progress, So yeah, I remember like I was able to graduate. I ended up taking like a scientific writing class or tech writing class, and I did really well in it. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll change my major, and I changed my major to tech writing, and I did well. I graduated. I remember my graduation, since I had taken time off, I went back and graduated in 2014. I remember, like the day of my graduation, I was, partying every night. And I just remember being hungover that day, and my parents didn't really know what was going on, but so I just remember not feeling very good, and so anyways. Graduate, and I'm still valeting cars. I didn't have a job lined up, but one thing happens. I was going on interviews and stuff, but one thing did happen. One of the CEOs of one of the top pharmaceutical companies in the area, we knew his cars. He had like a nice BMW and like a nice Porsche, and he came in one night, and I was just talking to him, and I said, yeah, I went up to Washington, D.C. for an interview, and I don't know if I got that job, not having good luck and stuff, and he's like, what's your degree in? And long story short, he gives me his business card, writes his, phone number or email on it, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I email him, and I don't hear anything for a few weeks, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So that's he's the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He's not going to email me back. And so I emailed him back, and I was like, hey, are you still interested in not giving me a job, but just like giving me an opportunity potentially? he emails me right back, yes, in capital letters, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, this is awesome. So that was a Friday, and the recruiter from the company called me and set up an interview. And I remember interviewing with what would be my future boss, and he was basically saying that that they weren't going to hire me because I didn't have any experience and stuff. So he's telling me this on the phone. I'm like, okay, yeah, great. And I didn't expect to get like a in-person interview, but I went backpacking with my dad, and where we go up to the Linville area, and there's no cell phone service and stuff. So I come back, check my email, and there it is. There's an email to come in and have the face-to-face interview. And again, long story short, I got like some sort of sickness from drinking the water or something, and so I was like sick for a few days. And the first day I felt good was the day of the interview. I went into the interview, did the best I could, and a couple weeks later I was sleeping till about 10 o'clock in the morning because I slept in those days, and practically I was hungover. And I got a call from the recruiter, and they're like, hey, we want to give you the job. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they told me what my base salary would be, and they're like, would this be acceptable? And I'm like, okay, that's like double or triple what I'm making now. So yeah, like, do you need to think about it? No. So I took the job, and again, I didn't know how to manage my life or do anything really by myself. So I built myself up to having a really good job and a really nice apartment in Cary, and the car and all that stuff. And I burned it down to the ground again. And what that looked like was it was kind of a slow burn at that point. It wasn't just like a dropping off the edge. So what it looked like was I worked there for I think 8 months, and that was kind of like my MO for jobs. I could get a job. I worked there for like 6 to 8 months, but by that time I would be like on a written warning or just something for performance or whatever. And like my mind would kind of drive me nuts, where I would think my manager or boss would walk by me and he'd look at me a certain way, and I'd be like, okay, they're gonna fire me. They're gonna fire me. And I just kept on thinking that, and I did get fired from the job. And I remember going to my parents' house after that and telling them what happened. And they made me take out loans to go back to school because they didn't trust me for obvious reasons. And but they still had set us, and they said if I graduated, they would give me the money so I could pay back the loans. So they kept that promise, and so when I got fired, they handed me over the rest of the money, which was $15,000. They just transferred it into my account, and they said you can do what you want with it. You can pay your college bills off, which would be the right thing to do, or you can do what you need to do with it. By I think September or October, that was in January. By September or October, I had spent that money, just going to the bar every night, doing drugs and just other stuff, and then I get a job like working at Time Warner Cable, selling cable, just stressful jobs. And then, I would make these promises to myself, like the ego was talking. I'll never go back to valeting cars. But then I ended up having to go back. I had to go, swallow my pride and go valet cars again. And, I remember getting another girlfriend, and again, she was going to be my wife, and this whole thing, but she was more like a drinking partner. We just go to the bar together and stuff. And I remember one key thing that happened. We went out on a Saturday night. My parents' friends, like one of their friends was a drummer or a guitarist in like some kind of band that plays at dive bars and stuff, and they're like, come watch the band. And now I was just drinking Long Island iced teas and just having a good time. And I remember waking up the next morning, I had to be at work by 7 a.m. It was a Sunday morning, and that was like one of the busiest mornings because everyone was checking out of the hotel for the weekend. And I remember calling in sick. And so, I lied and said I was sick or whatever, because I was sick, but not like ill, not like a cold sick or whatever. But little did I know the drummer of that band was one of the bellmen. So he had seen me partying, and he threw me in the bus, and I got fired from that job. And so, I don't know, I'll kind of getting closer on time, so I'll fast forward to, it just keeps on getting worse. I had several other jobs, like the relationship started getting rocky. My drinking, I used to wait until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon or evening to start drinking. It progressively went down to 3 o'clock, then noon, and before you know it, I remember dates, and I like to explain dates just so people can see how fast it goes downhill once you start drinking from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. So that girl had broken up with me, and my family basically had seen me struggling with all this stuff, and they basically said it was messing up their marriage, and so they said, we're going to go ahead and block you, we're not going to talk to you for 30 days. If you have a problem, contact your aunt who lives in California. And I'm like, wow, that sucks. Because I used to have a really good relationship with them before things got out of control. And anyways, so I was having money and job issues, girl issues, and the family issues, and I just said, screw it. And I started drinking from the time I got up to the time I went to bed. And that was May or June of 2016. And I got sober in November of 2016. So during that time, I think I was selling cars at a dealership in the area. And I'm not sure if anyone was familiar with selling cars, but that lifestyle is, a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking. And so I fit right in with it. But I was worse than everyone because I was drinking all the time. So I wasn't like coming in hungover, like I was just continuing the drinking just throughout the day and supposedly managing it and stuff. And, I remember being friends with one of the managers, like I knew his brother or something like that. So, he would always kind of forgive me for coming in late and stuff. And I started doing other things and drinking like over in the parking lot. Like I would have a fifth of Fireball. I love these like Budweiser Strawberry things because they had 8% alcohol and they were cheap. And also I thought that because they taste like strawberry that they didn't smell like alcohol in your breath. So I was like, okay, this is a win-win. So I would be taking shots of Fireball across the street and chasing it with the Strawberry. And they would call me and say, hey, Kevin, you got a test drive in the strawberry. And I'd be like, okay, cool. I'd come over and this is something that I kind of laugh at now, but it's because I'm in a completely different life today. But I would take people for test drives, and I thought I'd pull the wool over their eyes, that I thought that I was getting away with all this stuff. And, I started to just, I wasn't selling any cars because I was drinking and not performing. And so I would just get discouraged, and then I would not let anyone know, and I would just go home. And they would call me and say, hey, Kevin, where are you? And I'd just be like, I'm at home. And they'd be like, oh, okay. That I did that quite a bit. They were pretty forgiving to me. And actually one thing did happen. I was hungover or still drunk one day, and I checked out one of these Yukon Denali XLs, and I put down the seats, and it's big enough for me to stretch out and take a nap. And I drove down to the outer parking lot far, far away, I thought, and I pulled in, and all the other cars were backed in. I pulled in, and I wasn't really thinking, and I turned the air conditioning on and some music, and put the seats down, and I just went to sleep. And I wake up, go back to work, pretend like nothing happened, and I noticed people were like laughing at me and stuff. And so apparently, what happened was the general service manager took a picture of me in the back of the Yukon because he was looking for a car and he saw the car pulled in the wrong way. But they just were like, it was funny to people. I didn't get punished for it or anything. So anyway, I want to get sober here in a second. Last couple weeks, the last couple weeks of my drinking, I was drinking behind a gas station 6, 7 in the morning. No car because I had told it gotten a DUI, blew a .2, and I was taking other things. I was walking and talking to the cops just like I'm talking to you right now. When I wrecked the car was still running, so I'm like, okay, great, I can get out and I can leave the scene of the accident. Little did I know someone saw it, and then also the 2-inch thick metal guy wire was stuck to my frame of my car, so whenever I tried to drive, it would just yank me back. Anyway, so I got the DUI, and my life was, I hadn't spoken to my parents for like 9 months, and my life was a wreck. I would have been homeless, but I was living with a buddy of mine that didn't make me pay rent. At this time, I wasn't really eating. I would eat every couple of days because if I ate, it would kill my buzz. I didn't have enough money to buy enough alcohol to get where I needed to be. So on November 17th of 2016, I was hopeless, just at the bottom, just broken. And my parents reached back out because I talked to some of my friends and found out how bad I was doing. And they're like, okay, we're going to get you to detox. We're going to get you some help. And I got checked into Wakebrook to medically detox. At that time, people bring AA meetings in, and I was like, okay, I want to be on the other side of the table. I want to be the person sharing the message and stuff. And so once I made up my mind, I was like, okay, I'm one of those people that picked up one white chip. So I thank God for that because I was just so broken. So I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I had to live in a sober living house for 6 months. I had several jobs, one of which was working at Applebee's, waiting tables, and like a part-time fry cook at some restaurant for $9 an hour. And I had to ride the bus to wait tables from North Raleigh to downtown Raleigh. It took an hour and a half each way for a year and a half. So sobriety wasn't fun for me in the beginning. Got the car and the license back. In 2018, world opened up because I could drive again. Met another woman this time. I thought I was just fixed from working the steps and sponsoring people and going to meetings and all this kind of stuff and working with my sponsor. I do that relationship and I keep my sponsor involved every step of the way. And because that's what I was told to do. And so everything went fast. We moved in quickly. Like I asked, I did things like in my life that I never thought I would do. Like I was able to propose to her on the rim of the Grand Canyon. My mom gave me the center stone from her grandmother's engagement ring to put on a setting and stuff. And she financed me to get the setting. I'd pay her back monthly. Just the trust was being built up again, and I got a job at the company that I still work at now back in 2018, and I've been promoted numerous times. It's at another pharmaceutical company. I left that other one off my resume because it was a train wreck. I just made a gap in it, and again, like to this day, 5 years down the road, I still talk to my sponsor. Actually has male pattern breast cancer, and he's had it for almost 2 years. And I like I said, I have a great relationship with him, and I call him and I'd be complaining about my little problems, and I felt bad. I'm like, man, this guy's got cancer. He's getting chemo, and I'm complaining about these little problems. And I was like, should I get another sponsor? He's like, no, I'm still your sponsor. And so anyways, I know I'm running out of time here, so I wanted to say, if you're new, you can go through anything in sobriety. Like the woman that I later married, I ended up separating and divorcing earlier this year. And the good thing about having God in my life and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is I didn't think about a drink, because I knew that if I took a drink that it wouldn't make things any better, and that would let her win. And so, I didn't want her to win. So that happened, and like I said, I still work at the same company. I've been working from home for the past 2 years, which is, my life is good today. I have like a full license and a car, and no blow and go in the car. And I've been able to take trips, just do normal stuff that I didn't think that I was going to be able to do, because I was just so hopeless. And when I tell my sponsees, they're all into like the material stuff and whatever, especially earlier on, I say, if you work on your insides and you work the steps, you get a relationship with a higher power or God, whatever, your insides change, and then your outsides change as well. So I ended up getting a lot of material things, but I also had the peace and serenity inside that comes from working the steps and working with others and sharing the method, or the method of staying sober. So life is good today. I have my own place, good relationship with my parents. Been employed for almost 4 years at the same company. Just normal stuff. I have a normal life today. I'm still crazy. I still call my sponsor about really messed up stuff and see a therapist for messed up stuff. But it's okay, because I just accept it. And that's one of the main things that I've learned in sobriety is just I can either go down the stream and flow with life, or I can swim up against it and fight. So thanks for letting me share.